Hello everyone, welcome back to a new recap. This is the first recap I do in 6 months, and in this game, it was the first round of the chess tournament of the weekend, and I played against a Smurf. A Smurf in chess is someone who is severely underrated to the point where the rating that is portrayed next to their name is completely false. This was the first round of the tournament, and I was 21st favorite overall. And I played against under 1482. This guy was way better than 1482. You guess, during this game, what was the rating of this Aaron Sethi from Ontario? So we started the game. I go e4, and he goes carlsen, d4, d5, e5, and now he goes c5, which is the Botvinnik-Karls variation. Now I take, because it's the best move against the Botvinnik-Karls, which is slightly dubious, but okay, it's still like a high rank opening. Like, dubious is a bit harsh. It's very playable. It's just less played at top level. So my opponent attacks my pawn with pawn to e6 immediately. And on this variation, I just play a3. My point is that on bishop takes, I go b4 with the tempo on his bishop. But what I had prepared was actually queen g4 here, and I forgot my entire repertoire, and I went with b4, attacking the bishop, which is way less good, surprisingly enough, because after bishop here, queen here, it's less good than if the bishop was still on c5 and I hadn't pushed b4. So I'll have to keep that for another tournament. But for now, queen g4 attacking the g7 pawn, and now my opponent plays g6. I go with knight f3, which is what I had memorized before, without this b4 pawn, but anyways. My opponent goes a5, and now I go b5. So it's pretty normal to give this c5 square to the knight in exchange for this pawn on b5 that is kind of taking these nice squares. My opponent goes knight d7, and I go bishop b2. So bishop b2, h5, my queen goes to f4. Here, my queen, it's kind of funny in this pawn structure, the queen on f4 is really well placed. It can't be attacked that well. But we'll see that after I play queen f4, actually during the game right here, I'm kind of stunned because I figure out that my opponent can go g5, g4, and suddenly these pawns can rocket on this side of the board. Let's say I go queen e3. I was like looking at g4 and getting really scared, knight back and bishop g5, and suddenly these black pieces are monstrous upon mine. My opponent didn't find this and played b6, which is a mistake, but I have to know how to play against it. I have to play c4 here to attack this pawn structure. I was more looking at this weakness here, which is not that attainable. If knight d4, bishop here is in time, and I just don't have that much going for me. So I played h4. Seeing that g5, g4 was such a big threat, I kind of covered it on this move. And my opponent told me after the game that he did not see h4 coming, and he did not know why I played it at all. Knight c5 was played, and now black has kind of maintained equality because my move order was quite bad in the opening, and this is sort of an equal position, which is quite an achievement for black, given that the nature of the opening is quite dubious. It's not the best way to play for the black pieces. So I went with knight bd2, and now bishop b7, and I went with c4, attacking the pawn chain. Although this pawn chain is pretty nice right now, the bishop is defending and is prepared to take back on d5 with some eyes on the queen side and king side. Rook c8, I go rook d1, and now queen c7. So I don't know why queen c7 was played, other than the fact that this rook is x-raying the d-file, but the queen on c7, not doing much. A more productive move is this knight h6, knight f5, developing the knight, preparing castles, and this knight on f5 is a total dominator of the position. An idea that was missed for a couple moves. Now I go bishop e2, developing to finally castles. I should have played somewhere along the lines of takes, and knight c4 to get my knight to d6. This was always on the cards, but I just didn't want takes, knight c4 to go knight d6, but then, okay, here I would get a really nice double attack if this miracle would happen. But then I just didn't like bishop takes c4. But in fact, I gained the bishop pair, and this would be actually really nice for white with an open file and some active pieces. Quite nice. But instead I played bishop e2, which is slightly a little bit more passive, and this let this plan knight h6 be played, and this is what black went for. I went takes, bishop takes, castles, and after knight f5, I thought to myself, okay, this 1400 is a little bit better than he said. He has three minor pieces in the center that are kind of outposts, and he hasn't budged an eye since we started the game. His time control is fantastic, and he looks confident in his play. This guy is definitely not a 1482. Never have I seen a 1482 play like this. So I played bishop c4, which is a mistake here. I'm trying to takes to create an isolated pawn, and the best move here actually is just castle, ignoring it, and after takes, this pawn becomes actually dangerous, some d4 prospects. Anyways, my opponent took on f3, which was kind of surprising, but then I realized, wait, I can't just retake this bishop with anything. If queen takes, knight takes h4, and this pawn falls, and same for g takes, knight takes h4, so I have to take with the knight, but I have to be assured that knight a4 is not dangerous, because now there would be a double attack by this queen on this bishop, and by this knight on this other bishop. Thankfully, I saw that on knight here, I have bishop takes e6, an intermediate move or intermezzo, attacking this rook, ridding my bishop, and with a horizontal discovered attack on this knight. If pawn takes, queen takes, and I'm up a pawn. But more importantly, if knight takes, evading the knight from the a4 square, now I can take this rook. And on knight takes, I had to do a little bit of calculation, but I have bishop takes knight. And here it's equal in this position, but I'm up a pawn, and I'm threatening this knight. So this would be quite an insane desperado. None of this happened. He castled. So much for calculation, but it's good to get that calculation in to make sure that your opponent doesn't have tactics. So I played bishop a2 all the way back to a2, out of the line of this queen, and preparing bishop b1. My opponent went rook fd8, and now bishop b1, targeting this knight to further penetrate in these dark squares, because this knight is guarding all these dark squares, but once it vanishes, who is going to defend all of these squares around the king that are so vulnerable? Because of all these pawns on light squares, the dark squares are inevitably super weak. My opponent takes and trades another pair of rooks, and now it's a queen and three minor pieces middle game. Kind of an interesting mix. I take this knight, e takes, and I thought quite a bit for this turn, and finally went with like a super GM idea. This is like grandmasters, super grandmasters play this easily, but at my level, like 2000 plus, 2000, 2000, 2200, this is a very tough move to make. And coincidentally, this is the only move in this position that equalizes the game. So if I don't find this, black is winning. And I find it, e6. Simple idea is to unveil the bishop on this long diagonal and penetrate through these dark squares. Even though this is not paying right now, the queen can infiltrate at any moment and bring a decisive victory with two checkmating threats. My opponent has two options, actually three options here. Takes, and queen d1 check. My opponent played knight takes, but let's look at what if pawn takes, because this is a crucial, critical move in this position. What if pawn takes? Queen h6 threatens mate two ways. Actually, this is not checkmate, but it's damn sure winning. Queen d1 check, king here, and I saw that after bishop d6 check, I can just block and keep threatening this, and after takes, this is falling, and I have some mate, because if king here, it's checkmate, and if king here, it's checkmate. So black are in big trouble, cannot defend this g6 pawn, and it's completely winning for the white pieces. So what to do with black in this position? What if you try queen d1 check first? Also, this is reasonable, just like what was played in the game. And the fact is, after king h2 and bishop here, now I can take with check, which is what I see, which is what I had seen. And after king takes, there's knight e5 or bishop e5, the computer rathers, and here takes, and this king is in the center, and I would say practically white has the chances. So you kind of have to take with the knight, but the problem with this is that I have queen e5 threatening checkmate on h8, and if you were to block this diagonal, I can take this knight for free. Same for bishop, I can take this bishop for free. So what does black do? Only move king h7. I had seen this very important line. If queen d1 check now, I can't go to h2 because of bishop d6 pinning my queen to my king and winning the game at once. So I found knight e1 here, blocking the queen, getting the knight out of the game completely passive knight, but this threat remains. The battery on this diagonal is so strong that now black has to defend, and the only way to defend checkmate here is to play bishop f6, giving the bishop but really just trading this. And here the threat looms, remains on h8, and king f8 is the only thing to play. And I had seen check this king here and queen g8. And I thought this was winning, but in fact, black has king d6, hard to find. And after this, there's queen takes f2, queen takes is not check anymore, and now black has a draw with queen f4, queen c1. But my opponent played king h7 here instead of queen d1, which we just saw, blocking these two checkmates. But after knight g5, bishop takes, pawn takes, these pieces are pretty concentrated on defending both mating threats. So the black pieces are forced to be passive, but I have one pawn down. So after queen f8, I'm down a pawn, but I can't find a way to win this game. If I play my queen out of the diagonal, this queen is released from its duty to defend and suddenly can blossom on the c5 square and defend effectively. So I thought, why not just get my pawn out of the way, structure these pawns on dark squares, and this will help me for the endgame, with the threat looming of queen g7 and queen g8 whenever these pieces move. Sure enough, the only drawing move here is knight takes pawn, but I thought, down 2 pawns, white has queen d4 threatening this, and now it's not so easy to defend. Because knight e6, you have to find queen takes. I'm down a pawn here, but I have a protected pass pawn on the wing, a distant pass pawn. And you have to find queen b4, only drawing move as black. And I had bishop f6 here. I think practically white has the chances because of this pass pawn, but black can find some things to try to draw this game. You can't take here because of the defense. So I thought this line was very interesting, but my opponent played queen g7 trying to defend, and this is a blunder completely. He was expecting me to go back and attack the queen and just go back with his queen for a draw, but I had seen before this move that this was losing because of queen takes, knight takes, distracting the knight from the defense of this queenside pawns, and now our plan comes into vigor. Bishop d4, attacking this weak pawn, and now this knight and king are too far away from the defense of this b6 pawn, and after knight e6, bishop takes. My opponent was very discouraged here, 16-year-old chess player who has clearly been studying for months. What do you think his rating is at this point in the game? King g7, I take this a5 pawn, the king goes down, I go b6, knight d8, check, and now I have 2 passed pawns. I'm still just 1 pawn up, but these 2 passed pawns are way enough to win. King d7, and now I played a little tricky, b7. You see, I can afford to sacrifice this pawn because this knight landing on the b7 square lands on a square that we call the knight's dumb square, or the dumb knight square. On b7, this knight is a dumb knight to this pawn, wing pawn. On a6, the knight would have no good moves, and a7, you queen. This is just a very normal catalyst in chess to win. Steal it for yourself in your games. But basically, I have a6 here. If my opponent's knight were to take a king here to defend the knight, and I go a7, and my pawn queens, and you cannot defend against it. Pretty cool. My opponent didn't take this pawn, played king c7 anyways. I went a6 to defend, and after knight c6, I found this very nice move as well. Bishop d6 check, sacrificing my bishop. Let's put a little brilliant move on this. It's already winning, but you know, some croissants, some homemade baked goods for the end of this game. After king takes a7 and this pawn queens, or this pawn queens, you cannot stop both. But my opponent played king b6, and then I queened, won the knight, and a few moves later, I just played some king maneuvers, and my opponent resigned as the good sportsman he is. Guess his rating. The next game of the tournament, this opponent had a bye because it was the lowest rated of the section. But don't let that fool you. The next 2 games, he went on to beat a 2070 national rating and then a 2100. So I escaped a bullet. Let's just be honest. This guy revealed to me during analysis that he was 2100 online and that he doesn't even play online that much. So he's underrated even online. And then when asked about tomorrow, I said, you're going to crush them tomorrow. You're going to play under, and he did. I think I gave him confidence to go and crush the tournament. And my round 2 is against a FIDE master. It's the first time I beat a FIDE master between us. and might be the next video on this channel. So like this video if you want to see that. And the recaps are back, baby. Thank you so much for watching and have a marvelous day.